Welcome to the church online campus. We are so excited to have you here joining us this evening. My name is Danielle, and tonight is our final night of our series, Tempted, Winning the War Within. During the message, we would love to connect with you. So if you haven't already, you can join our live chat to the right of the screen. Here you can ask any questions or even just talk with one of our online hosts. If you have any other questions like who we are and what we do, be sure to visit welcometothechurch.com after service. Now, here's Pastor Kevin with tonight's message. Enjoy.
Well, today we're in the last week of our Tempted series. And for those of you that have been coming every week, you know that we've kind of been hanging, the entire series has been kind of hanging on this one story that's found in 2 Samuel chapter 11. It's a story of David and Bathsheba and the mistake there that they made. Now, it's an interesting story, and there's so many different nuances with this story. And starting back at week 1, just giving you a quick little recap. Starting back at week 1, we talked about how that David lost this war of temptation. He lost the war within him because he simply, number one, he didn't realize that God's way was better than his way. He was duped into thinking that my way of living and my way of thinking and my way of acting is just as good as what God wants. But he did it his way and ended up really hurting his life and the life of others around him. Second thing we learned that in this past, by looking at this story, is that you can't play with sin. Because when you play with sin, something dies. And if you remember, that was the week where I'd been gone the week before, and Pastor Dan spoke and did an awesome job. But man, I came back and I was ready to roll. And I spoke on sin, and I spoke on it hard. I mean, I was like preaching hellfire and brimstone, Pentecostal, Baptist type stuff. There's a fun message to preach, actually. Everybody's looking at me like, oh my, who's this guy? But that you can't play with sin. Because every time you sin, there's something that's going to die in your life. And we talked about that. And then also last week we talked about how that to win this battle that goes inside of us, we have to start feeding the good and starving the bad. That inside of us there's like this dog of desire. And he's always looking at us like my old St. Bernard Butkus. And he's looking at us just like, feed me, feed me, feed me, feed me. And whichever dog we feed, if we feed the dog of desire that's bad, that dog will grow stronger and he will pull us into doing things that are bad. If we feed the desire that is good, that desire will grow stronger and pull us into things that are good and godly. So that's kind of been where we've been so far. And tonight we're going to take the final step in looking at this story and breaking it down and seeing how it is that David lost the battle when the war within. Okay? So if you have a Bible, turn to 2 Samuel chapter 11, verses 1 through 17. And if you don't have a Bible, that's okay. Just sit back, maybe get a cup of coffee and have a little story time with Pastor Kevin. Here we go. I'll do my story voice. In the springtime, at the time when the kings go off to war. No, geez. In the springtime, when the times when kings go off to war, David sent Joab out with the king's men and the whole Israelite army. They destroyed the Ammonites and besieged Rabbah, but David remained in Jerusalem. So we'll see right here that this was a season when kings were to go off to war. It's kind of like it's football season. This is the season where people put on their helmets, their shoulder pads, and they go out and they play football. Well, this was a season where if you were a king, you punch your time clock and you get to work. You start defending your nation. You lead them in war. This was the season where kings go off to war. But on this particular season, on this particular day, he's looking at the enemy. It's the Amorites. There's this area called Rabbah. I think we can get this. And he just says, I think I'll just kind of stay here and relax. Joab, why don't you go do the fighting for me? So he decides to stay home. He doesn't go off to war. So that's what's happening there. Goes on to say, one evening, David got up from his bed and he walked around on the roof of the palace. From the roof, he saw a woman bathing. The woman was very beautiful, and David sent someone to find out about her. The man said, she is Bathsheba, the daughter of Eliam, and the wife of Uriah the Hittite. Then David sent messengers to get her. She came to him, and he slept with her, and she went back home. And the woman conceived and sent word back to David saying, I'm pregnant. So what's going on here is David, he's walking up on the top of his palace. He sees this lady taking a bath, and she's nude, and she's beautiful, and he keeps looking, he keeps lusting. That dog of desire is getting larger and larger. Oh my gosh, I want this girl. Who is this girl? I don't know who this girl is. And all of a sudden, he goes to a messenger, someone in his inner circle, and says, hey, keep this on the lowdown, but I need you to go over there and find out who this girl is. And the messenger says, okay, I'll go. So the messenger goes over, finds out who the girl is, comes back and says, hey, King Dave, her name's Bathsheba, and she's the wife of Uriah, one of your soldiers. So then David gets another messenger and says, hey, bud, why don't you go over there? Do me a favor, man. Why don't you go over there and get Bathsheba and bring her back over to me? And the guy says, okay, I'll go. So he goes, and he gets Bathsheba, brings her back to David. David has intercourse with her. She gets pregnant. Then she sends a messenger back to David and says, hey, I'm going to have a baby. Now it's getting a little tricky. So David sent word with Joab. Remember, that's his main leader that's leading the troops. David sends word to Joab, send Uriah the Hittite. And Joab sent him to David. And when Uriah came to him, David asked him how Joab was, how the soldiers were, and how the war was going. Then David said to Uriah, go down to your house and wash your feet. So Uriah left the palace, and a gift from the king was sent after him. But Uriah slept at the entrances of the palace with all of his master's servants and did not go down to the house. So what's going on here is Uriah's out to battle. David figures out, if I can get Uriah to come home, he'll sleep with his wife. She's pregnant. Everybody, including Uriah, is going to think the baby's Uriah's. My deed's done. Everything's fine. So he has Joab, hey, Joab, send Uriah back. Uriah comes back, and all of a sudden, Uriah is with the king, and the king starts making small talk with him. Hey, how's Joab doing? How the fellas doing on the front line? Hey, how's the war going? Listen, he don't give a rat's hind end how Joab's doing, and he don't care how the war's going. He's just trying to schmooze and manipulate this guy named Uriah to think we're buddies, we're close. So he said, how's everything going? Listen, you've done such a good job fighting for me. Why don't you go ahead and, man, you're filthy, you need a bath. Why don't you go ahead and go back home and just clean up, relax, and wash your feet? And Dave knows he's going to do a whole lot more than wash his feet if he goes home. I mean, he ain't seen his girl in months. So when he goes home, David knows if he goes home, he's going to have intercourse with his wife, and my problems are solved. But Uriah doesn't go home. Uriah, he stays at the master's palace. Now, David was told by another friend, by another messenger, David was told, hey, Dave, Uriah didn't go home. So David meets with Uriah, and he asked him, haven't you just come from a military campaign? Why didn't you go home? And Uriah said to David, the Ark of the Covenant and Israel and Judah are all staying in tents. And my commander Joab and my Lord's men are camped in the open country. How could I go to my house and eat and drink and then make love to my wife? As surely as you live, king, I will not do such a thing. So David knows, man, this guy in his right mind, this guy's not going to go home. So I got to get him out of his right mind. So the story continues. David said to him, listen, stay here one more day, and tomorrow I'll send you back. So Uriah remained in Jerusalem the day and the next. And at David's invitation, he ate and he drank with him, and David made him drunk. But in the evening, Uriah went out to sleep on his mat among his master's servants, and he did not go home. So Dave thinks, man, this guy, he ain't going home. I got to make this guy go home. I got to get him drunk so he'll just kind of fall, hey, where's my house? And he'll just kind of fall back home. He gets this guy, he said, what am I going to do? So he said, I'm going to throw a kegger. So Dave throws this kegger party, invites Uriah to the party. They're eating, they're drinking, there's liquor, and there's wine, and man, he just gets him swashbuckling drunk. And Uriah falls out of the palace, and he's walking home, and he says, I can't go home. And he lays down, and he falls asleep again by the master's servants. Even not in his right mind, he had enough character and intestinal fortitude to not go home. In the morning, David now realizes, man, I gotta end this. So in the morning, David wrote a letter to Joab, and he sent it with Uriah. And in it he wrote, put Uriah out on the front lines where the fighting is the fiercest. Then withdraw from him so he will be struck down and die. So while Joab had the city under siege, he put Uriah at a place where he knew the strongest defenders were. When the men of the city came out and he fought against Joab, some of the men in David's army fell. And moreover, Uriah the Hittite died. So David says, listen, this guy, he ain't going to go home. I'm just going to take care of business then. I know Uriah will always do what I tell him to do. He's not going to talk back to me. So he writes a letter, dear Uriah, please put, dear Joab, please put Uriah on the front line so that he dies. Thank you. He folds up the note, gives it to Uriah, and Uriah has his own death sentence in his pocket and doesn't even know it. Uriah goes back to battle. He gives it to Joab. Hey, the king wants you to have this. Joab opens it up. Hey, please put him on the front lines. Make sure that he dies. Okay, that's what I'll do. And Joab puts him on the front lines. Uriah is killed. Verse 27, it goes on to say, when Uriah's wife heard that her husband was dead, she mourned for him. And after the time of mourning was over, David had her brought to his house, and she became his wife and bore him a son. But the thing that David had done displeased the Lord. Now there is, like I said, there's a lot of nuances to this story. We see that he thought his way was just as good as God's. He kept playing with sin. He was feeding the bad and starving the good. He was doing so many things wrong in this story. And there's a couple hidden things that we see in this passage of Scripture and in this story they're very small, but they have huge ramifications in the story. Massive ramifications in the story. The last reason that David was not able to win the war within his heart is because of this. David was at the wrong place, and he was always hanging with the wrong people. And it's all throughout this story. We see it. Wrong place, wrong people. So let's look at this real quick. First of all, wrong place. It says, in the spring, at the time when the kings go off to war, David sent Joab out with the king's men and the whole Israelite army. They destroyed the Ammonites and besieged Rabbah, but David remained in Jerusalem. So the time came where vacation's over, summer break's over. It's time to get back to work. It's time to be a king. It's time to get my time card and punch it, put on my war gear, and off I go. Instead of going to work and instead of getting to work as a king, David said, I think I'll just sit this one out. Joab, you got this. So he sends Joab out to fight, and David stays home. David was in the wrong place. As a king, his role was not to stay home at the palace. As a king, his role, go fight for your country. And on that particular day, he did not go where he was supposed to go, and he went to the wrong place. Because he was in the wrong place, he sees Bathsheba, they have intercourse, the baby comes, and then the whole mess with Uriah happens, and the thing turns into Jerry Springer show. It all happened because this guy was in the wrong place. If he'd have just went to war, none of this happens. He was in the wrong place, number one. Second thing we see, and we see this all throughout it, when we look careful, is wrong people. Man, this guy surrounded himself with wrong people. Now, here's the thing about King David. He's a king. So because he's a king, he's very famous, he's very popular. I mean, if it had been today, he's got a lot of Twitter followers. He's got a lot of Facebook fans. His Snapchat is totally full. He knew everybody. His Rolodex was massive, and the people in his Rolodex were the high rollers. There were other kings, there were other great men, and there was a great amount of godly men. In fact, David was really good friends. He was close with a guy named Samuel, and he was also close with a guy named Nathan. Nathan is a prophet that comes back into David's life, not by invitation, but by forcing his way in, and confronts David on his sin at the end of it. He also is friends with Samuel. He's the one who made David, he saw him as the next king. So David has some high roller, good, godly councilmen in his life. But let's look at the story of, in this story, who he's hanging with. It says, one evening, David got up from his bed and he walked around on the roof of the palace. From the roof of the palace, he saw a woman. The woman was very beautiful. And David sent someone to find out about her. The man went and found out, came back and said, she's Bathsheba, the daughter of Eliam, the wife of Uriah the Hittite. So David has all these people he can call on to find out who this woman is, and he doesn't call them. Who he calls is hey, buddy, come here. Will you do me a favor? Will you go over there and will you ask who this girl is? I need to know who she is. And this someone was just a yes man. Sure, I'll go. Sounds like a good idea to me. You want to know who she is, man? Oh, I'm just so glad to be hanging out with you. I'm just glad you asked me to do something for you, King. Sir, yes, sir, I'll go do it. And he just obeyed and went, and he came right back. David had a yes man to just do his bidding in this moment. It says that then David sent messengers to get her. She came to him and he slept with her. So in this moment, David, first time he gets with someone who's going to just do what he wants him to do, the next time he goes and he gets some messengers around, a group of people around, and says, hey guys, here's the deal. Keep this on the lowdown. I know I can trust you because I've trusted you before. Keep this on the lowdown. Here's what I need you to do. I need you to go over to Bathsheba's house and I need you to bring Bathsheba back to my house. Can you do that for me? Yes, sounds like a great idea to me. I'm going to go over there, and that's what they did. This group of yes men just went and they got Bathsheba and they brought her back. In fact, Bathsheba, when she got pregnant, she had a group of messengers that she sent back to David. She didn't even tell David herself. She sent a group of friends. Hey, listen, man, something's going down. You know, I slept with David. Now I'm pregnant. I need you to go tell King David that I'm pregnant. And they went and told him. And then you have Joab. It says, in the morning, David wrote a letter to Joab, and he sent it with Uriah. And in the note, put Uriah out in where the fighting is the fiercest, then withdraw from him so he will be struck down and die. So while Joab had the city under siege, he put Uriah in a place where he knew the defenders were. Uriah was a yes man. Joab was a yes man. Joab, I need you to do something for me. I need you to make sure that Uriah dies. And when Joab got the note, he just simply said, yes, sounds like a good idea to me, and he made sure the man was dead. All throughout the story, David in a time of intimacy, David in a time of pressure, David in a time of wondering, what should I do, what shouldn't I do? He's always calling for people that he knows will agree with him. Would you go talk to her? Yes, I will. Would you go get her for me and bring her to my bedroom? Yes, I will. Will you go kill him? Yes, I will. He was always surrounding himself in this story with yes men, people who wouldn't give him pushback. If you notice in this story, he never one time called Nathan, the prophet. He never in this moment of thinking, well, who is this girl? He never got a hold of Samuel, the prophet, and said, hey, Samuel, have you ever seen this girl? Do you know He didn't talk to Samuel. He didn't talk to Nathan. He didn't talk to the godly men. He got the yes men around. Hey, something's going down. I'm kind of liking this girl. Will you go find out who she is? Oh, sounds good to me. You need to have fun. And all of a sudden they go. He never called anybody that would disagree. He just surrounded himself with servants and messengers and yes men. He was the top dog at his own friendship table, and it got him in trouble. Anytime when you're thinking of doing something and you only get a hold of people that you know are going to agree with you, you're probably going to do something dumb. It'd be the equivalent of one of the fellas in the room. I know nobody in this room would do this, so I'm just making it up a story. But if one of the fellas in the room would all of a sudden starts texting a group of guys and saying, hey, man, it's Friday night, man, we're heading up to Fresno. We're going to go to the strip club. You want to go? Hey, you want to go to strip club? Hey, you want to go to strip club? Hey, would you like to go to strip club? Would you like to go to strip club? Hey, you want to go to strip club? Hey, we're going to grab a bite, going to go to strip club. You want to go to strip club? Listen, I guarantee you, ain't one of you would text me, right? Nobody's going to text me and say, hey, PK, you want to go to strip club? Why? Because you know, what am I going to say? I'm not going to say, hey, let's go get our game on. I'm not going to do that. What am I going to say? I'm going to say, no, I'm not going to the strip club. And in fact, I think it would be ignorant of you to go to the strip club. In fact, why don't you do this? You're a married man, right? Instead of going to the strip club, watching this girl take off her clothes and think about what you could do to her with her clothes off, why don't you just stay home, brother? Why don't you stay home, get your own wife to take her clothes off, and you can make love to her? Okay, do that. That's what I would say. But you know that's what I would say. That's why you're not going to text me. That's how it was with Dave. They never got Nathan on the phone. Hey, Nathan, man, there's this smoking hot woman next door. I'm thinking of having sex with her. What do you think I should do? He never called him because he knew what he was going to say. He was with the wrong place. He was at home when he should have been at war, and he was with the wrong people. He was with people that just looked up to him and wanted to do whatever he wanted to do. He didn't have people at his table that he looked up to and that he didn't want to disappoint. So those are the things that caused David to fall. Is wrong place, wrong people. So what's that got to do with us? It has a lot to do with us. Because if we're not careful, we can fall into the very same trap that Dave did. Is we can get into the wrong place and with the wrong people. But if you want to win the war within, you got to get to the right place, right places. You got to hang out with the right people. So let's just, for a few minutes, let's just kind of dissect this. Let's talk about right place. The right place in life basically is this, is anywhere you're supposed to be. Anywhere you're supposed to be at that time, be there. Because what I found in my life is when there's some place I know I'm supposed to be, but I don't go there, my life starts to get jacked up a bit. It's location, location, location. In the business world, it's all about location. And in our life, it's all about location. If you get someplace, if you are not where you should be, there could be some trouble coming. And there's a lot of different places that you should be on a regular basis, but today we're just going to point out two. And the first one comes from a story found in 1 Kings chapter 19, verses 19 through 21. And here's what it is. So Elijah was a prophet. He was like the big prophet of his day. He was a massive man of God. But he was looking for, give some backstory. Elijah was looking for a mentee. He was looking for someone to mentor, someone to train, someone to give his anointing to as his days were coming to an end. If it was Star Wars, he's looking for a Padawan. He's looking for a young Luke Skywalker, right, to become the next Jedi. And so Elijah goes out and he's looking for someone to mentor. And it says, so Elijah went from there and he found Elisha, son of Shaphat. He was plowing with 12 yokes of oxen, and he himself was driving the 12th pair. Elijah went up to him, and he threw on his cloak around him. This is saying, I'm picking you. You are the one that I want to come and be my servant. You are the one that I want to train. He picks him while he's plowing the field. Then he left his oxen and ran after Elijah. Let me kiss my father and mother goodbye, he said, and then I will come with you. Go back, Elijah said. What have I done to you? So Elisha left and went back. And he took his yokes of oxen and he slaughtered them and he burned them by plowing the equipment to cook the meat and gave it to the people and they ate. Then he set out to follow Elijah and became his servant. You say, what the world's that got to do with King David and winning temptation? It's got a lot to do with it because here's the thing. Elisha was at the right place at the right time. And where Elisha was a place that's very important for us. Elisha was at work. He was working. Elisha was a farmer. So that means the day before he was on the plow again. Not like the big tractors like we got. He's on the horse and the mules and the plow, and he's plowing the field. He goes to bed that night. He's tired. He wakes up in the morning. Surely he's thinking, I don't know if I want to go to work today. I think I'll just sit back and just relax and not go to work. He went to work because it was time to work. He went to work, he hooked up the horses, he hooked up the mules, he hooked up the plows, and off he goes. And while he is working, all of a sudden, God interjects his life. And out of nowhere comes the prophet and says, I want you to follow me. And all of a sudden, his life turns and he gets his destiny with God. But you see his heart, he's so diligent. Not only does he just say, sure, I'll follow you, he makes sure I can't go back to this other job. This is going to be my new job, is following you. I'm going to be with you. I'm going to follow you. I'm going to learn from you. And to make sure I can't go back to my old way, I'm going to burn the plows. I'm going to butcher the animals. And I'm going to make sure there's literally no other job here for me to go to. I'm going to remove any other location that I can be. Now I'm just going to follow you. He worked. And because he was at the right place, work, God interjected his life. If on that day he would have been in the wrong place, home, he would have totally missed God. Where David messed up is he wasn't where he was supposed to be. He was at home when he should have been at work. Who knows how David's story would have differed if he'd have just went to work that day. So for us, what does that mean for us? Well, here's the thing. If you've got a job and you're not taking a vacation day, even when you're tired, go to work. Go to work. Because God's going to interact in your life. There might be somebody you meet that day that you invite to church and their trajectory of their life would change. There may be somebody you meet that day that they have something going on in their life that changes your life that you would have totally missed if you didn't go to work. And we live in a culture today that is it's so anti-work. We just want stuff without the work. That's not how life works. You know, most 25-year-old dudes, they're oh, I can't work at McDonald's. That's below me. I'm going to stay home and play video games all day. I'm going to play an Xbox that my mommy bought, and I'm going to text on a phone that my daddy bought because I can't go to McDonald's and work because that's below me. Come on, man. Come on, get to work. Get to work. Put the video games down. Put the phone down. Be a man. Don't be a boy that shaves. Be a man. Get to work. Because when you go to work, that's when God shows up. When you stay home, that's when temptation comes. You remember back when you were at school, way back in the day, your school, and you cut school? Did anything good ever happen in those days that you cut school? No. Why? Because you were someplace you weren't supposed to be. Wrong place. If you got a job and it's not a vacation day, get to work. Now take your vacation days and use those things. That's awesome, but get to work. Because if you don't, you're going to be at the wrong place, the wrong time. And something that will happen that should have never happened because you weren't where you're supposed to be. I know that's so practical, but man, it's so true. Get to work. Get to work. Next one is church. Is church. Church is a place that you need to be at on a regular basis. Am I saying if you ever miss a Sunday service, you're going to burn in hell? Yes, that's what I'm saying. No, I'm not saying that. I'm not saying you'll burn in hell if you miss a Sunday. I'm not saying that, but I'm saying you got to make church. When it's Sunday, man, get up and go to church. I remember when I was little, my dad, unfortunately believed in healing. So I said, Dad, I don't feel good today. It's Super Bowl Sunday, and I just happen to have a really bad fever, you know. And Dad would say, Kevin, you are healed in Jesus' name. He'd speak in tongues over me and say, get in the car, let's go. Dad, I'm still not feeling good. Hey, brother, just fake it till you make it. You're good. You are healed in the name of Jesus. Your body just hasn't caught up with the healing yet. I mean, all that stuff. My dad believed in healing. It's if it's Sunday, man, get to church. Why? Because that's where you need to be. Why go to church? Why? The Bible gives a great explanation of why. It says in Hebrews 10:23. It says, let us hold unswervingly. Man, let's hold on tight. Let's don't let go and then hold on. Let go. No, you hold on tight. Unswerving. Let us hold on tight unswervingly to the hope that we profess. For he who promised is faithful. And let us consider how we may spur one another on towards love and good works, not giving up meeting together as some are in the habit of doing, but encouraging one another. What? Encouraging one another to keep meeting together. Why? So that we can continue to learn how to do good works. Let's continue to encourage one another to meet together so we can learn how to do good works, all the more as we see the day approaching. What day? The day that Jesus comes back. Splits the eastern sky, rapture happens, church comes, 7 years of tribulation, 1,000 years of peace, the Antichrist, the beast, all that stuff. As we see that day approaching, that's not the time to say, I don't think I'm going to go to church today. When you start seeing wars and rumors of wars and pestilence and famines and earthquakes in diverse places, people against people, nation against nation, and people saying that they're the Christ and they're the Messiah and false religions rising all around us, when you see the end coming, that's when all the more you need to say, what time's church today? What time's church today? I need to get in church. Why? Because when you come to church, we talk about one thing, Jesus and how to live like him. We spur you on to good work, spur you on how to be a good dad, spur you on how to be a good mom, spur you on how to spend money wisely, spur you on how to win over temptation. When you come to church, you learn how to be good. When we skip church, we learn how to be like culture. This is why it's so important, man. Be a part of church. Again, I'm not saying you can't ever miss. I'm not saying that. But what happens sometimes is, and I've seen this so many times through my life, is people go to church for a while, they're really involved, really in, and all of a sudden maybe job changes or location, something changes in their life, and they miss a week, they miss a month, they miss 2 months. They tried this church, they didn't like try this church, and then they miss another, and they've been out of church for a year, now it's 2 years. I've never one time in 44 years of life have I ever, I'm not saying this never happened, but I'm saying I've never met anyone who, after being involved in a body of Christ, being involved in a church, when they stopped going to church and just started living life without being together in a church body, I've never heard anybody say, I was once in church and really involved, and now for the past 3 years, I've been out, and my life is so much better. I've never heard that. What I hear is, man, I used to be in church. I was a board member. Shoot, I was teaching in Sunday school. Got out of the habit of going to church, and, well, unfortunately, that the marriage I was in didn't work out, and I got a daughter over here now, and, she's smoking the wacky weed, and it's a little different now, and life's different. Life's not as good. Why? Because we stopped assembling together and learning how to do good works. One of the best places to be is church. So whether it's a community group or it's a Sunday night or it's a Sunday morning or it's watching online with a group of people, man, find a body of believers and hold on to that, because that's where you need to be. Because it's in those seasons when we get out of church that life starts to get a little tricky. So that's number one. That's couple right places. And then in closing is right people. Got to be at the right place, man. Church, work, be about business, right place. And then secondly is right people. 1 Corinthians 15:33 says, do not be misled. Bad company corrupts good character. What that's saying is, man, if you're around a bunch of people and you're the only one that's got good character and everybody else is bad company, they're bad news, they're not living a godly life, you will be the one who gets corrupted. It's like walking into a room where everybody else is covered in mud and you're the only one with the white outfit on. You're going to leave with some spots of mud on you. That's what bad character will do. Now, it's not saying don't ever hang out with unbelievers and don't reach out to the law. That's not the case. But it's saying bad company, inner circle friends that are bad company are going to corrupt your good character. When it comes to friendship, there's a lot of different layers. It's kind of like, friendships is kind of like onions. There's different layers. So the first outside is like the fringe friends. And that would be a group of people like you have no control whether they're there or not. They moved in next door to you. You go to school and they take in the same class. You have no control of them. You have nothing in common. They're there, you're there. That's a fringe acquaintance. Hey, what's up? How you doing? So there's the fringe. And then there is kind of like what I call the work friend, or maybe we'll say sometimes even some church friends. And that would be, okay, we've got some things in common. We work at the same place. We gather in the same community of believers, and I see them and they see me, but we're not like going out and eating all the time, and we're not best buddies, but we're acquaintances, we're friends, we're work friends, we're church friends. So there's the fringe people, then there's like work and church friends, and then there's what I call family and extended family friends. And that would be people that they either are blood relationship or, man, they might as well be. They're like always at your house. They're always hanging out. You're really good friends. You go hang with them. They hang with you. They're at family gatherings together. Now this is a friendship. It's back and forth, friendship. And then there's what I call the inner circle. And the inner circle, that's the people that in those quiet moments when you really have some questions, and you need something done and done maybe on the lowdown, when you have some questions that you need to keep quiet, these are the people that you trust the most. They have the most influence in your life. And it's this inner circle of friend that is the most profound, because they have your ear and they have your heart. And inside of this inner circle, David had some inner circle friends. Some people that no one else in the palace knew what was going on except for this someone here who he said, will you go find out who she is? Yes, that sounds good. This messenger here, will you go get her and bring her to me? Yes, that sounds good. His inner circle friends were not the type of friends he needed. The type of inner circle friends that we need are these. There's just a couple. Number one is we need friends that give godly advice. Proverbs 27:9 says, the heartfelt counsel of a friend is as sweet as perfume and incense. We need some people in our life that have been down the road of life enough and are close enough with God, and they're close enough with us that they give us some heartfelt advice. It's good, it's godly, it's coming from the heart. Yes, I think this is a good idea. No, I think this is a bad idea. And it's hard. We need people that are able to give us some heartfelt advice. Not just say, sounds good to me. Yes, I think you should. Hey, can I go with you? We don't need that in the inner circle. That's the fringe people. Inner circle, we need heartfelt advice. Also on the inner circle, we need friends that love you. I know it sounds crazy. We need friends that love you enough to hurt you. Friends that love us enough to hurt us. Proverbs 27:6, wounds from a sincere friend are better than many kisses. It goes on to say, it says, better is an open rebuke than a hidden love. Wounds from a friend can be trusted, but an enemy multiplies his kisses. It says there that we need to have some friends in our life that love us enough that when they find out we're thinking of doing something, or we let them know we've been doing something, they love us enough to say, man, what have you been smoking? No, you can't do that. That's ignorant. That's dumb. Listen, you always do this. This is a pattern in your life. Don't you see? You do this and you do this. And at the time, you're like, man, step back. You're hurting me. God says that's good. We need people in our life that see negative patterns and point those out and say, man, you got to fix this or something's going to go tragically wrong. The wounds of a friend are good, but we don't want inner circle friends that are always just kissing hind end. We don't want that, not the inner circle. Because this is our heart. And you need people who are going to give you heartfelt advice. You need people who love you enough that are going to wound you if they need to. And then also on that same note, you need to surround yourself with people that are no men and women, not yes men and women. You got to have people in your life that are strong enough to look at you and say, no. No, I'm not going, and you shouldn't either. You need that. You need that. If not, you're going to be like David and go right into a whole bunch of junk that you're later going to regret. And lastly, on the friends thing, is you need some people that you look up to in your inner circle. You need some people that you'd say, man, I don't want to let them down. I want to aspire to be like them. If you're at a table and you are the most godly person at your table of friends, if you're at a table and you're the most wisest person at the table, you need to get a new table. Hang out with some people that you're at the table with. Man, I can't believe they're at the table. I can't believe they're my friend. I don't want to disappoint them. I don't want to let them down. They are so godly. They are so wise. I wonder what they would think. You've got to have people in your life like that. For me, I've got 4 or 5 of those. I've got a lot of friends. I got a lot of family, friend people. But my inner circle is extremely small. Number one is my wife, Veronica. Amazingly godly. I want to be like her as it pertains to this. I don't want to let her down. I cherish her opinion. Number one's my wife. Number 2 is my father. When rubber's meeting the road and I got to make a decision, I'm thinking that I'm going to call my dad. Number 3 is Bill Parks. He's the pastor that was here that has cancer. I'm always on the phone. I'm always texting him. What can I do? I don't want to let you down. Number 3 is a guy named Shane Duffy. He's one of our board members at New Spring Church. And the 5th one is a guy named Perry Noble. He's a pastor. And any time in my life that I'm looking at making a decision or I've got some questions, I get them on the phone. I don't talk to my neighbor. I like my neighbor. He's a nice man. I don't care what he thinks on this. I want to know what these people think. I don't necessarily care so much about what my friends and family type think. I want to know what these people think because these people love me enough. Shane loves me enough to say, Kevin, you are wrong. And he's done it many times. Veronica loves me enough to say, that doesn't make sense to me, hon, and here's why. And she's done that many times. I need that. So whenever there's things in my life where I've got big decisions to make, I get these people on the phone or I sit down and I meet with them because I know they love me enough to hurt me if they have to. Also, when I'm not with them, if they're gone and I can't get a hold of them and I'm just thinking about doing something privately or publicly, I don't know how many times throughout the week I would think to myself, what if Veronica finds out what I'm thinking of doing? What would Shane say? What kind of look would Perry give me? What would my dad think? And when I run it through that filter, I've moved to the good decision. Because these people mean so much to me, I don't want to see that look of disgust on their face. I don't want to see that look of disappointment on their face. They're my inner circle. So here's a few questions as we're ending tonight. Number one is, do you have a place in your life that you find yourself typically going, that when you are there, and I don't know what the place might be. It's not like, some bar or something, even just something. Is there a place that you find yourself in that when you're in this place, you typically opening yourself up to a lot of temptation, or you typically are thinking about negative things? Is there a place? That's the first question. The second thing is what changes do you need to make this week to get that place out of your schedule? What do you need to do? And do whatever it is. Don't play games with this. Don't, next month, no. Now, this week. Is there a place, a location that typically you fall in or you think of falling in? Where is this place? And what do you need to do to not be there? That's the first question. The second question is who's in your inner circle? In your inner circle, do you have a whole bunch of people that consistently say, yes, I'll go with you. Yes, I'll go with you. Yes, that sounds good. Yes, yes, yes. Do you have yes men and yes women? Or do you have some people who love you enough and who are down the road enough spiritually and even in life to give you good godly counsel and to look at you and say, that's not wisdom? And if you don't have anybody like that, what I'd invite you to do is look around. Because I'm seeing a lot of people in this very room and in our church that are those types of people. Start pulling them from the fringe to kind of a friend to now we're hanging out to, you mind if I talk to you about some stuff? Pull some people into that inner circle. Who is it in your inner circle? And if you don't have those folks, get them in there. Get them in there. I'm not saying tonight if you got some people in your inner circle that are bad news, you got to text them tonight, hey, just want to let you know you're bad news and nothing but a yes man. You're out of my life. Get out in Jesus' name. I'm not saying that. You don't got to be rude. You're not going to push people out. I'm just saying pull the right people in. You start pulling the right people in, I'm telling you, I've seen it. You pull the right people in your inner circle, the wrong people will want to leave on their own. That's just the truth. Pull the right people in, and the wrong people will say, you know what, I'm not going to hang out as much anymore. And that's okay, because there's a lot hanging in the balance tonight. Your heart, your eternity, your family, your spouse, your children, your children's children, the wake of influence that you have in your sphere, there's a whole lot riding on the decisions you make of your heart. So tonight in closing, know that God's way is better than yours. Don't play with sin because something's going to die. Start feeding the good by reading the Word, living the Word, and speaking the Word. And then lastly, is be in the right place. Get to work, get involved in church, and be in the right people. People that love you enough to hurt you and say no. If you do that, you'll win the war within. You'll win the war.
Thanks again for joining us tonight, The Church Online. If you happen to be in the Visalia area and you'd like to attend one of our weekend services, you can find our service times and locations at welcometothechurch.com. Be sure to tune in next Tuesday for our new series, Is This the End? We hope you have a great week.